so we will expand. With the TV, I explained that full suite, incredible experience. What we use is Microsoft Media Room, and now it's called Ericsson Media Room because Ericsson purchased that, but it's usually listed as the top choice for the J.D. Power surveys. It's a terrific experience, incredibly fast channel change, whole home DVR, whole home HD. Because of the fiber network, you can record a ton of shows at once and watch in HD as many as you want. We do offer wireless set-top boxes, so we don't even use the wiring in the home. So you're no longer bound by your cable plug, and it's a terrific service. And last is phone. It's a full suite, and this isn't just for residential, it's also for business. So we offer POTS, PRIs for larger customers, as well as SIP, with all the features and all the capabilities. And the last thing that's not on here, we also offer true broadband. And so that means connections between here and the rest of the world that are at whatever speed you need. We have customers in very small communities that traverse the entire United States with huge amounts of bandwidth, and so we enable that. I mentioned the transaction with Nelnet. Nelnet purchased the majority interest in Allo at the end of last year. Basically, the owners are myself, a person named Jeff Kinney, who's not a football player, K-U-E-N-N-E. He's an electrical engineer. He would never be confused as having any athletic talent. So, and so he and I and Nelnet own the vast majority of Allo now. Why is that great? Nelnet's long-term focus. They have a 30-year view of things. They don't sell companies, which I think is very important to communities, because the last thing you need is a bunch of transactions. The other is they have a lot of capital. And this is a huge capital intensive business, and you want someone who is very, very financially strong that comes into your communities, because the last thing you want is somebody having difficulty and then you have a bunch of fiber under poles and fiber under your streets and alleys, and then what you do with it. The last thing is Nelnet has a world-class customer service infrastructure, and we've already seen the benefits of that. We moved our network operations center to Highlands Ranch, where Nelnet has about 300 employees. Guess what? That's where there's tons and tons of telecom people. Some of the best people in the world are based there because of Level 3 and a bunch of other groups that operate there. We've popped that up over the past 6 months, and it's I put it up with anybody operating in the state right now, which has been wonderful. And then the last is we're growing rapidly. You may have seen some reports that our sales in Lincoln are far exceeding our expectations, and they truly are. Every week it brings a little more heartburn. But we're scaling, and because of Nelnet, we have the CSR, the customer service rep infrastructure, as well as IT infrastructure for our internal systems, so that it's going to be very smooth. It's exciting that it's selling as fast as it is in Lincoln, but it does take a lot of work because we do have exceptional customer service. We have over 20,000 access lines in our business right now, and in the first quarter, I think it was 54 lines went back to a competitor, and all 20,000 were gained from competitors. Normally, companies like us see about 1 or 2% per month, which would be between 200 and 400 lines go back to a competitor, and we're better than that. And so we'll continue that pace, and with Seward, the nice thing is we're building a regional infrastructure, and Seward and a couple other communities near Lincoln, we're hoping will come up next year, and that will be terrific for your community, because in economic development, you'll be able to check a box. Not only that, your quality of entertainment and work life will far improve from where it is today because of another choice, lower price. Guess what? When we come in, all our competitors, there's pricing pressure, which is wonderful. The quality of service goes up by not only us, but all the other competitors as well. And it ends up being a very enviable position compared to the other communities that don't yet have fiber. So really our advantage is we take a comprehensive approach. Every single person or entity, easier to say entity, that we pass, we want to be a customer. So again, we don't cherry pick. We've been at this since 2003, I guess that's 13 years. We're willing to work with the community on how you want to do business, and we'll be here forever. So that's what we do. So again, my ask is, one, if you have any questions, who is Allo and all those types of things. But number two, our ask is that we begin negotiations very quickly with franchise fees and pole attachment right away. So, did I miss anything, Ben?
No.
Excellent. Any questions? Yes?
Can you give us some idea of what the cost would be? Do you have any?
Sure. Today, the simple, most people care about internet, so I'm going to start there. Internet 100 meg up and down would be $55 a month. Gig up and down is $85 a month, is our current pricing. Lincoln is a little higher than that due to some of the give backs we made to Lincoln. A triple play, usually without any premium channels, after tax is going to be in that 150, 160 range for 100 meg. Add $25 for a gigabit. And then, oh, I should mention, we're also working with the Public Service Commission on a discounted plan. Are you guys familiar with the Lifeline program for voice, where people who are getting government subsidies can also get a subsidization for telephone? Well, the federal government has now ported that to internet service, and we're doing a trial with the Public Service Commission where the city, Allo, Public Service Commission, and the feds will all contribute, and we're hoping that we can get a 20 meg by 20 meg economy service down in right at $20 or maybe even a little bit less. And I'm real excited about that, because if everyone doesn't have access to the internet, it just creates a bigger digital divide. With laptop programs and things like that, all students need to be able to have service.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Brad, not for you necessarily, but Josh and Bruce, so since they offer the programming, it would be a franchise situation. How does that mix with the Time Warner franchise that we have? We just have two franchises, basically?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, it's a non-exclusive franchise.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Structurally, usually we ask for a couple of things. In the initial or the incumbent cable company, they'll say something like, you have to be everywhere. Well, on day one, we can't be everywhere. And so the FCC's kind of governed that there has to be a reasonable time period before we hit ubiquitous coverage. And I think that's about the only thing we'll ask for, is a slight modification in the franchise agreement.
And that franchise is for the programming aspect of it. As far as just the internet, like if you were just putting fiber down, they wouldn't need a franchise. That's why it hasn't come up with the other presentations. But if any other private company wanted to add or make programming available, they would also need to come back with the franchise agreement.
Yeah, without TV, really you only need, right of way and pole attachment. Now, for us, we believe that TV is important for a couple of reasons. One is, it adds franchise fees back to the communities. Most of you are seeing less income from your TV and telephone, and this is a way to get some back. But the other is, as you can see from Google and others, you need it because of the bundle that the competitors have. And to be successful, it's important. Yes?
Hey Brad, what's the handoff like at the residence? Are you
I-
guys providing the internal equipment?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, we provide 100% of the equipment. We don't charge for the modem or Wi-Fi router as well. No, what we do is we install what's called a giga center in every residential home. And from there, we can broadcast Wi-Fi. It also provides ports for if you have a wired computer, and it also provides the ports for your telephone. And it's a single box that becomes your network interface device, or the DMARC, as you've heard. And we actually put the DMARC in the home, and so it's protected.
so what kind of range do you have on, you mentioned the wireless set-top or box. You know, what kind of range does that have?
It does very well in about a 2,500 square foot home. If it's a bigger home, we just put an extender on it, and you truly get it. If you have a newer iPhone or whatever, with this Giga Center, I've had service and not standing right next to it across, the room. That is normally about 950 by 950 on an iPhone. It's rather remarkable. And we change how a community operates. Bruce has seen that from a wall. Any other questions? Well, I think it's an exciting time, and by all means, if you guys need any references or anything like that, we can provide those, because one thing we do is we pride ourselves on being great corporate citizens. And so, not only corporate citizens, but we, again, will employ a decent number of people in your community, and they become part of it. So,
Was there any other questions or comments? I say thank you very much for the presentation and for visiting us on the 5th of July.
excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are all kind of probably recovering from yesterday. Not that it's not an important day everywhere, but particularly in Seward.
It was a long day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have item number 5. This is consideration of a well permit application for Mark James Blanco II for 2241 North 2nd. And Bruce, you want to talk about this?
Well, we have a well permit application to drill a residential water well. Address, 2241 North 2nd Street. Tim, you've looked at this and discussed it with the owner, and it meets our requirements at this time.
Yeah, so far everything on the sheet meets requirements, but we'll have to follow up on the list of requirements as he drills.
And just in case you're wondering, this permit Tim been working on this for a while. I mean, this was first brought to your attention how long ago?
Probably about 7-10 days ago.
Okay, but we're talking about this, I thought, was it months ago?
Yeah, I mean, you had a conversation
aware.
with them, because they've already have one up there, right?
Yeah, I think that's his sister in the lot that's to the north. There's one well there already, and I think they purchased both lots at that time.
Okay.
And they wanna drill the well on the second lot.
And so that's why the 5 and 6 is ordered in the way it is because this was already brought to our attention before 6, so we trying to be fair and address that issue first before moving on to 6, in case you're curious about the ordering. Any questions, or comments on item number 5?
Yeah.
Okay. I just read what's.
Yeah, no, and I was just pointing that out, it's an eye.
Like the anchor man, he put on the teleprompter. I wanna read it.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
All in favor, welcome back, Campus Grades, no more single motion.
Thank you. Item number 6, consideration of an ordinance suspending Municipal Code Section 3-141 for a period of 2 years and issuing a stay for this time for digging, drilling, or construction of private wells within the corporate limits of the city. Bruce?
Well, this just came up and it's coming up in towns all across the state, and a lot of towns are going to no more residential water wells. Several reasons. It just provides another path to the groundwater. So if something happened to that well, it could allow contamination in your groundwater supply. We have to go out and do inspections and things like that on private wells, so that takes our time enforcing the codes. If you have people sharing wells, that causes a problem. If residents go out there and start drinking out of a garden hose, you don't know that that water's good at all. We had to put in a treatment plant because of nitrates. And so you don't want the citizens drinking water that has nitrates in it, so you don't know what kind of water is coming out of these residential wells. And again, if they fail to keep the wells sealed, you gotta have a problem there. And then, we've invested a lot of money into our system, to provide good quality drinking water to people, so we're losing revenue off of that, and if we lose revenue, then we're gonna have to raise rates, and then that affects the people that can't afford to drill new wells and stuff like that, so. Like I said, most towns, or a lot of towns around us, I talked to several, and I can kinda name a few of them that said, they don't allow it anymore, no more private wells.
This was actually brought to our attention when Jack Vavra was here as city administrator, and he was surprised that we did residential wells, and for the reasons that Bruce mentioned, but also the reason why we're looking at a moratorium as opposed to just simply repealing it is we wanted to give. It's usually this time of year when it gets hot, when people start thinking about doing this, and we just wanted to kind of put the brakes on it, give the staff time to do more research. We've gotten some information from some communities, and I know I think there's more information coming. It was just the timing with especially now that it's getting really hot, kind of puts a little bit of a time crunch as far as do we just want to, do we want to do something with this? The moratoriums are good in the sense that if nothing is done, it just reverts back in 2 years, or if it's a year, or whatever that timetable is. So if there is no action, whether the council decides, can't agree on what to do moving forward, or we're having a hard time coming up with a comprehensive proposal to present to the council at the end of that moratorium period, then it just goes back. It's like a sun, is bad to say, it's like a sunset clause, essentially. So, what's that?
It automatically
Yeah,
reverts the way it was.
right. So that's the reason why we were looking at doing a moratorium as opposed to just a straight repeal at this time. So, yes, Chris.
Well, I guess, I don't have a problem with this 2-year little limit on here, but if we're gonna do this, I guess I would like to, let's spend the 2 years and figure out what our risk really is. How many wells do we have out there? When's the last time they've been inspected? I think they all should be inspected. Do they have the backflow piece in place? Where's our risk at? Are they sharing with the neighbors when it clearly says you can't share with the neighbors? I think we need, if we're gonna do this for 2 years, let's spend the 2 years and take a look at what is our true risk and where are we at, and not just, we're gonna put a moratorium on it for 2 years, and in 2 years, we're gonna let them do it again.
And my intent is not to take the full 2 years. My intent is to have something before the council much sooner than that. And yes, the hope is to have a much more comprehensive approach as, what you just mentioned, but also, there might be reasons why maybe you want to make an exception for larger lots or for commercial properties, or there's 1,000 variables, and rather than try to rush something to the council, we wanted to just kind of take our time and hopefully do it right. John?
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said, because then you got big business, okay? We even run some of our equipment off wells, okay? So then you would say, well, you're a big business, you can't drill a well no more. So what are you gonna tell that big business? We run a lot ourselves. So I'm sure there's other big businesses in town that do it as well. And I agree that you need to do a lot more research. Moving forward, I'd like to see the word clause moving forward from this point on. If that's the case, instead of that 2 years. And then the other thing is maybe part of that permit, maybe we need to do testing of the water to verify. And then next, you've got bigger pumpers that are in the city limits versus a submergible well. And then you maybe need to look at people that have pressure tanks versus a submergible well. They're not even going into the house, okay? So they're not gonna be contaminating your drinking water. So, there's a lot of things, I don't think we really did a lot of background checking here.
Never mind, Chris, this will take 2 years.
Yeah.
I was
So,
kidding.
I seen it, I was very disappointed in the writing of it, so. Well, we didn't do a very good job of researching it. I know it's a start.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, this is just simply just to take a deep breath and just to do all that research and figure out what makes the most sense, because like you just brought up, there's a lot of variables that we want to make sure that we're addressing. Ellen, and that's it.
For all the reasons that they just put out so well, why take the right away from people? Why put a moratorium and take the right away now? Do all this due diligence and then come back and tell us what the real picture is here. We're taking a right away from citizens that they have had for a long time. And truthfully, if they wanna dig a well, from my standpoint, that's their business, and if they do it properly and within regulations and reason, then they should be able to dig a well. Our water is very expensive. We're not doing anything to lower our utility rates.
It's not gonna make it cheaper.
But we're not doing anything with our budget to lower utility rates here. So why take away this last option they have? If they wanna water their lawns, then let them water their lawns. I can't support this.
We do keep in mind that, when you did your well, what was the cost on that? We're not talking about.
Mine, though, but I'm lucky.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Mine's only 45 feet deep.
Okay.
It was $4,500. But then you go to his neighbor, I think it was $10,000.
So it's not a cheap option to
No.
do.
No, but it is a choice.
Yes.
It is a
Oh,
choice,
yeah.
and it is
Yeah.
something that we've
So let me go to Sid first and we'll go back to Tim.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ellen, and then I didn't have a chance to pull up the actual original code of 3-141, but doesn't it already not allow, that it can't be mixed with your drinking water, isn't only for irrigation?
That's correct.
So I don't think the argument that people could be drinking, well, okay, some kid could go out there and get a drink from the hose, I'll admit that, but, I think the existing code already kind of restricts what can be done, and I guess I'm looking for the big flag here, like Ellen said, what big problem are we having to put a moratorium on restricting people's right to what's below their property, which, mineral rights or whatever. I mean, if I wanted to mine uranium underneath my property, if I found it, I guess I could. So I totally agree with Ellen. It's like, you know what? Take your time, take your 2 years and do the study. But in the meantime, why prohibit people from doing something that they have a right to do?
Well,
There's no problem. I don't see the red, I'm looking for the red flag.
No, that's
I don't see it.
I can just tell you, like, from the state's perspective, when they had agricultural wells, for pivots, well, they'll say, okay, this goes into effect on this such a date. Well, then you end up with a rush of people then trying to get in under that line. So the point is that the council ultimately decided it wanted to limit the wells. What you're gonna do is you're gonna end up with potentially people coming in during the meantime to request these well permits. And it puts the council in the awkward position of, well, are we gonna allow these, and then we're not gonna allow them, or we're gonna allow some, and rather than having to have those issues come up, and granted, there may not be any well requests, I don't know, but when it gets really hot, like it is now, you tend to hear more people looking to do that because they don't wanna fry the lawns. So that's one of the reasons for the moratorium, is it just puts a brakes on this. And if 2 years is too long, it can be a shorter amount of time. I don't think there's no standard for that. It's just a matter of just putting the brakes on, so we have a second to catch our breath while we do all the research that was mentioned
Well, maybe,
before.
maybe the research and all that should have just been done before it ever came to us, and then you could say, hey, over the last 6 months, 12 months, whatever, we've looked at this and this and this, and there's these things, and these are our concerns, and then you have a case, like, this is why we're recommending this. I just have a big problem with the administration and the governing body, because the horse is already out of the chute, you know, and so I think what should have been done is, if there's really a genuine concern, is all this research and whatever you're talking about should have been done prior to it coming to us, because now you're putting us in an awkward situation. You know, you should have come to us with a genuine documented concern that said, hey, there's these issues with nitrates, there's these issues with revenue, whatever it is. Here's why we should do something. I still don't see the case why we should do something now.
Tim, did you wanna say something? Come up to the podium, please.
Yeah, when Jack was here, we went through some of this once before, but when we talk about issues, you know, I agree, you know, a lot what you said, you don't need to bring these issues out, but there's a lot of issues right now up front where we're just trying to sell water and make revenue, and that's what we do. And if everybody starts putting in all these wells, which there's quite a few out there already, then the revenue goes down. So sooner or later, we're gonna have to raise our rates to recover some of that lost revenue. So that means whoever drilled the well, their rates are still gonna go up too. And a lot of the wells that I looked into from the well drillers are running around $17,000. And then you look at the price of a well, and how does a homeowner recover $17,000? So then I started looking into kind of some of the wells that's going on around town, and now we have people sharing wells. They're trying to recover their costs. So now we have, don't have one with a permit, we have 3 people using that permit with 3 families that we've lost revenue from water. And that's kind of what's going on. That's what's kind of triggered this. So we're getting that sharing, and they're trying to recover that cost, and then you look at the overall cost, and if we get in the season like last year in the spring where it rains all the time, I mean, for them to recover that cost could be 20 years plus. So we're looking at, do we really need to let this go on? Continue to drill these wells and risk safety and lost revenue?
John?
Yeah, I think this is each homeowner's choice, okay? Going back to Ellen again, if they wanna spend, say, 5,000 to 20,000, that's their choice. The other thing is, if a city employee knows that they're sharing a permit or a well, we should be addressing the issue. That means we're not doing our job at a city level. The other thing is our utilities, going back to Ellen again, our water's not cheap, our power's not cheap. What benefit are, you know, people getting in Seward? We're not. You know, we keep going up. We've heard about this how many years ago when we had a state order, you know, and we had to hurry up and put $7 million in that osmosis plant. You know, and was that a good thing at that point? You know, we hit the town people are paying taxpayers that pay our wages here. We keep hitting them. When are we going to get something back? I think